Erev Tov Rabotai, we're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Shabbat. We're up to Perek Tet Zayin, Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana Aranbaev, and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov, Menuchatam beGan Eden. Amen. In yesterday's Mishnah, we learned that the Chachamim, the sages, permitted saving books of scripture from a fire on Shabbat. The following Mishnayot teach which other things may be saved and the limits imposed on saving each item. This Mishnah teaches how much food may be saved. The Mishnah begins, Matzilin mizon shalosh seudot. We may save from a fire food sufficient for the 3 meals one is required to eat on Shabbat, but no more. And the Mefarshim explains so that he not forget and put out the fire, like we learned in Mishnah 1. Hara'ui la'adam, hara'ui lebehema, lebehema. What is fit for people may be saved for people, and what is fit for animals may be saved for animals. And the Mefarshim explained, the Meiri writes, with food fit for human consumption, such as bread and cooked dishes, 3 portions may be saved for each member of the household. With animal fodder, such as barley and straw, one may save only the amount the animal will consume during Shabbat. The 3 meals mentioned in the Mishnah does not apply to animals, because one is not required to feed its animal 3 times on Shabbat. Ketzad, how so? Meaning, under what conditions may one save food for 3 meals? Nafla deleka belile Shabbat matzilin mazon shalosh seudot. If the fire broke out on the night of Shabbat before the meal, we may save the amount of food required for the 3 meals one is required to eat on Shabbat. Bashacharit matzilin mazon shte seudot. If the fire broke out in the morning before the daytime meal, we may save only the amount of food needed for the 2 meals still required that day, since that is all that is needed for the Shabbat. Baminha mizon seuda hat. If the fire broke out in the afternoon before the 3rd meal, we may save only the amount of food needed for 1 meal. Rabbi Yossi says, le'olam matzilin mazon shalosh seudot. We may always save enough food for 3 meals, no matter when the fire breaks out. And the commentators explain, since the food is being transferred to a courtyard in which carrying is permitted, one should really be allowed to carry as much food as he wishes. It's only that the Chachamim, the sages, limited the amount of food that may be saved from a fire to enough for 3 meals. But according to Rabbi Yossi, when they did so, they did not make any distinction as to when the fire breaks out. Now, even the food one is permitted to save may be carried only to a place where carrying is completely permitted, even rabbinically, such as a courtyard with an eruvei chatzirot. The only time we mentioned that the rabbis relaxed the limitations on carrying, that was only in the case of books of scripture. That's when the sages relaxed the rabbinic limitations on carrying. But here by food, you're only allowed to save it if you're going to carry it to a place where carrying is completely permitted, even rabbinically. Like we said, such as a courtyard with an eruvei chatzirot. And the Rav tells us, Rabbi Yossi, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yossi. We continue now with Mishnah Gimel. Again, the previous Mishnah that we just learned limited how much food may be saved from a fire. That Mishnah dealt with foods contained in several containers. This Mishnah discusses how much food may be saved when it is all in one container. Matzilin sal maleh chikarot va'afal pi shesh bo me'as seudot. We may save a basket full of loaves of bread from a fire, even though it contains enough food for 100 meals. V'ikun shel dvela, and likewise we may save a round cake of pressed figs, even though it has enough figs for many meals. And the commentaries explain, in the time of the Mishnah, it was customary to press dried figs into a circular utensil until they stuck to one another and formed a round cake. Since the entire round cake is carried out at once and may be saved from the fire, even though it has in it many more figs than are needed for the 3 Shabbat meals. The Habit Shel Yain, and we may save a barrel of wine, even though it contains enough wine for many meals, because since all the bread, figs, or wine in the container is saved at once, the sages did not limit the amount that may be saved. The sages limited the amount of food we may save from a fire only so that a person does not forget that it's Shabbat and extinguish the fire. But when a person carries out just a single basket, there is no added concern that he will forget the laws of Shabbat, just because the basket holds more than 3 meals worth of food. It's only one carrying, right? And therefore, the Chachamim allowed it in that situation. Ve'omer la'acherim bo ve'atzilu lachem. The Mishnah continues and says, the owner of a burning house may say to others, come and save food for yourselves, and each of them may take for himself food for 3 meals, because since the owner cannot save for himself more than 3 meals, the rest will be destroyed if no one else takes it. It's therefore in effect ownerless hefker, and anyone is free to take it and keep it. The others who come and save food may therefore claim the food for themselves and save the amount that the owner may save, which is enough for 3 meals. V'imayu pikhin, if these others were knowledgeable of the laws of Shabbat and knew that they may return the food to the owner of the burning house and take money for their efforts instead of keeping the food for themselves, osin imo cheshbon achar Shabbat, they may make a reckoning with him after Shabbat as to how much the work of saving the food was worth, and they may take their pay for saving the food. And the commentators explain, it is rabbinically forbidden to pay or receive wages for services performed on Shabbat, even though this service does not involve any prohibited work. In this case, however, since they were entitled to keep whatever they saved, the work was not done for pay, and therefore they may now return the food and instead accept payment for their efforts. And the commentators do explain that the Mishnah speaks of God-fearing people who do not want to take advantage of an owner forced to abandon his food against his will. However, a completely pious person will not even do this, because it resembles accepting pay for Shabbat services. Now again, we learned in Mishnah 1 that the sages allowed books of scripture to be carried out to areas in which carrying is normally rabbinically forbidden. How lenient were the rabbis in regards to carrying food? The Mishnah will explain now. Lechan matzilin otan, to where may they save food? Meaning, to what kind of area may the food be carried on Shabbat in order to save it from the fire? Lechatzer hameorevet, to a courtyard that has an eruve chatzerot, meaning only to a courtyard where carrying would be permissible in any case. No special leniency was made from saving food from a fire. Ben Betera Omer, however, Ben Betera disagrees, and he says, Af l'shenah meorevet, even to a courtyard that does not have an eruve chatzerot. According to Ben Betera, the sages waived the requirement of an eruve chatzerot when it's necessary to save food from a fire, and permitted carrying the food even into a courtyard that was not joined in such an eruv. However, even Ben Betera does not permit carrying into a place that does not have all the walls it needs, even rabbinically required walls. It's only with eruve chatzerot that he is lenient. In this respect, food is different from books of scripture, again, like we mentioned in Mishnah 1. And that is, Rabotai, today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.